Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Edna J. White. I will be your host for today's session with Wounded to Wonderful, and I'm so excited. I guess I'm excited about the Christmas season altogether, but I've been totally excited about what things are going on and how people are growing that I am in communication with, and how all the viewers are really moving along in their growth patterns and their growth journey. I wanted just to talk to you all today about self forgiveness. So many times people ask me, what does it take to forgive yourself? I thought just moving on and, accepting the circumstances the way they were or what had happened and moving on from that was, self forgiveness. But it's not. It's a conversation with yourself because, as you may not know or you remember, we're made of three or four parts, and one of those parts is ego. And ego kind of talks most of the time if it's operating outside of the spiritual realm. And if it's more or less, the ego is kind of connected to the body and the mind. And that's why we get so many phrases or so many people saying, oh, well, if it's ego, it's this. If it's ego, it's that. When you're in your ego, you can be bad. But ego is basically connected to your body, to your feelings, which, your body does act out, and to your mind. So whatever you think, your ego is part of that. But it's neither bad or good. It doesn't make you do anything evil, but it does operate and it moves you along the path. So when you're forgiving yourself, you're forgiving yourself on all those areas. Your ego, you're forgiving yourself in your spirit, you're forgiving yourself in your soul. Well, I'm sorry, not your spirit, because your spirit is the connection with God, directly to God. So you're forgiving yourself in your soul and in your mind, because that's where all the thoughts sit, and also in the seat of your soul, where all the feelings, the emotions that go along with forgiveness and self forgiveness, they are there. So how do I move on or move through? See, I don't like on, because on means I'm going to walk on top of and keep moving, but not take care of. How do I move through the process of self forgiveness? Well, there are certain feelings that are associated with self forgiveness, and those feelings have to be dealt with, whether it be happy, sad, bad, mad, whatever, glad, whatever the feeling is that goes along with that, anger, regret, all those feelings are created out of fear. There's only two emotions, and those two emotions are love and fear. Two feelings. I'm getting ahead of myself. Two feelings. Correction, rewind. Two feelings, and that's love and fear. Anything that's operating out of fear are all of those things that sit in the seat of the soul and that kind of take up and have you tussling and wrestling with things. Those are those emotions. Those are regret. Those are self-loathing. When I say that, oh, I'm fat, that's self-loathing. Oh, I see a wrinkle. Oh, that's self-loathing. Instead of accepting and moving through the process of loving yourself the way you are, where you are, when you are, you always have a time or an era that you're always thinking, I looked better at. That was when you appreciated yourself, or that's where you put your value in back then. But like all things, as they grow, as they age, as it were, they become better. So it's just a matter of how you look at it. But let's go back and get off of self worth for a minute and get on to self forgiveness. Self forgiveness is having a conversation within yourself, for yourself, about yourself. That's all it is. So if I had a feeling when I was molested, okay, and I felt good about something, or it made me feel good, and I've always had that regret on my heart. As I get older, I start thinking thoughts that the men are only supposed to feel good. The men are only in the sexual act, and men are only supposed to, they're the ones that are supposed to feel good. So what happens with me? I don't have orgasms. I don't experience them because I don't know nothing about them. Ooh, sorry about that. So I am now harming myself because I'm not giving myself the full enjoyment of what life is and how God created us. So what do? I go back. Once I realize that, I go back. And that all takes self-reflection, which I hope you all are doing, meditating, because that is very, very important. Please, very, very important. It gives you an insight into what you are feeling, how you're doing in general. It's a self-check. Meditation, self-check. Please remember that. Roll the tape back. So, what you're going through now, I am at this feeling. I acknowledge this feeling that I have blamed myself or not forgiving myself because it felt good at the moment of my molestation, which it really had nothing to do with. That's just nature itself. Those things that were out of order, really, I had no control over. So those feelings were natural, but inordinate, out of order. So I kept that in my heart. I kept this on the seat of my soul, on the seat of my soul. And I went through life, getting men or being involved in relationships. I shouldn't say men only, but getting involved in relationships that left me wanting. And what does it do? It feeds my regret. It feeds my, self-worth. It feeds my self-esteem. And now I have the idea that men are only supposed to get satisfaction out of sex. I never orgasm. I'm not saying I don't, but I don't have an orgasm. I have agreed in my mind that orgasms are not necessary because I'm a woman. Okay? When I acknowledge that, now I need to sit down with myself and I have to re-examine that thought because that's not a true thought. That's not reality. That's not truth. That's not what God designed for me. So what do? Now I have to say I forgive myself for feeling that it was wrong for me to feel good. When out of that feeling good, it really was out of order. But I'm supposed to feel good. I am supposed to enjoy having sex. I am supposed to enjoy being with someone. I forgive myself for holding on to that poisonous thought that made all of my relationships suffer. Because that's what happens. They do suffer. So that's one step, is acknowledge and now have a conversation with yourself. Why do I feel this way? Ask yourself that. Why do I feel that way? What's going on with me? And have that conversation with yourself and quietly sit for the answer. And when you get the answer, please don't go and ask everybody, oh, is this the right thing to do? Because they may not even know. You know what I mean? The questions in meditation are for you, not for you to go to ask an outside source, because God has given you everything you need in order to make this inhabitable temple glorified to Him. So you just have to take that under consideration. All right, getting back to self-forgiveness. After you do that, after you've asked yourself those questions, you're waiting for the answers. In the meantime, you're watching what your words are. You're taking care of yourself. You're spending some time with yourself. Because a lot of times we get into relationship after relationship and it's void. And we forget that we're supposed to be taking care of ourselves. So we spend some time with taking care of ourselves. And even if you're in a relationship, you shouldn't be this so entwined that you're not one. Because even a rope that's twined together have their own separate jobs. Okay? Even a rope tied together, twined together, have their own separate jobs. If one is worn out, they cannot hold up the other one. So how does that help either one of you? You have to be fortified in what you do. All I'm saying, self-forgiveness starts with asking the question and saying, now I forgive you, Edna. I forgive you, whatever your name is, for feeling this way. But now you replace that now with an affirmation. I am healthy. I find healthy relationships. I am healthy sexually. In my mind, I hold no ill feelings against my sexuality. See, a lot of women and a lot of men don't believe that sex has anything to do with what they're this. And being sexy, looking nice, looking great it's now voided because I have to look like a wash rag because of what I went through. I have to not look beautiful because of what I went through. And it's all not true. It's your sexuality is part of you. Embrace it, and you'll be the better person for it because you'll be a whole person instead of a fake person, a pretentious person. Embrace your sexuality, and embrace being who you are, whatever sex you are, whatever. Embrace that. You're a woman. You're sensual and sexy. Period. That's how God made you. Embrace that. Forgive yourself for thinking otherwise. Forgive yourself, and then you say, "Thank you, thank you, thank you." You're thinking your spirit, soul, and body. You're thinking the whole gambit that makes you, and then move on and move through it. Move through the process. Love yourself enough. Love yourself with wholeheartedness, because you're the only you have. And while you're loving everybody else, or supposedly loving everybody else, let's get that right, you're neglecting yourself, the main one that's supposed to shine and shine your light. But I thank you for coming today, and thank you for listening to me. If you have any comments, please put them on the bottom of the screen. I'll answer them. Email me at missedna12@gmail.com. If you have any questions, any comments, anything that you want to hear next week or next time, please, let's talk about it. This is Wounded to Wonderful session, and I'm so glad that you're here. This is Edna J. White. See you next time.